This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 63.
All of these indicators really are just whatever it is that you need to cue you that you're on the right track with a certain trade plan.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host, ClayTrader.
Well, hey, welcome back. This is, hopefully you noticed that in the thumbnail, but this is part 2. So if you did not listen to episode 62, you're definitely going to want to go back and listen to that, or else this is going to seem very choppy to you, because we're going to pick up right where we left off in the previous episode. So again, this is a 2-parter, and you're listening to part 2 right now. So go back and listen to episode 62 if you have not yet, which is part number 1, and then this will all flow much better. So without further ado, let's hop right back in and pick up where we were with CPO. But what exactly are you focused on right now? You know, at the time of this interview, where is your main kind of hard work and dedication being directed at?
So mainly 2 areas right now. One is Netflix. I'm sorry, not Netflix, Tesla. So I decided to get intimate with Tesla because I went in and I tried to trade it a little bit, and I've used this term before in the chat room. It's kind of like Cuisinart trading, where you throw some money at it and it just chops it up into little pieces and spits it out. That's kind of what Tesla did to me. So I thought, you know what? The only way I'm going to be successful, and I like the big moves of Tesla. That kind of is the old me coming out, but I decided rather than just getting eaten alive by it, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to specialize in Tesla so that I can get a feel for its heartbeat and how it moves. And and the reality is, and this is something I've learned, probably one of the primary things along the way, is I'm not actually trading against the market. I'm trading against other people just like me who are trying to make decisions on what they see, and we're all trying to follow similar patterns. But in the end, they're not my adversary. I'm my own adversary. I get in my own way 90% of the time. So part of that is me just learning how to watch the ebb and flow. It's like, when you have a dance partner, even a crappy dance partner, for a few minutes you're stepping on each other's toes, and pretty soon you find that rhythm where you're working together. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do with Tesla, and it's paid off by focusing only on one instrument and just sort of learning its patterns, its ebbs and flows, when the high volatility is, when the low volatility is, how much it moves, how much room I need to give myself for a stop, because it does move bigger than other ones. So my RVR has to be set accordingly. So that's it. But
I gotta jump in here just because there's a good observation, and it's a perfect example of how, because we've said it before, but we all have different personalities, we all have different risk tolerances. That's why you have to build a strategy that works for you. But you made a comment about Tesla. You said, it does make big moves and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose that's kind of the adrenaline seeker in me still. Exactly. However, the massive difference is you didn't say, well, Tesla moves big, I'm an adrenaline junkie, therefore I started trading it. No, what you said, and if you want to rewind back, listeners, you said, so then I decided to learn it, to learn how it trades, to observe it. So yes, his personality is coming into it. He's willing to take bigger risks because that's just his personality. So that's why he likes Tesla. But the big difference is he's taking his personality, but he also now understands that, okay, I don't just jump in. I do like the adrenaline. I do like bigger risk, but I need to learn it first. And great analogy, I need to learn how to dance with Tesla first. I don't want it stepping on my toes. I don't want to be stepping on Tesla's toes. I want to do a nice little cha-cha-cha with it, or maybe the Vietnamese waltz or whatever. I used to watch Dancing with the Stars with my wife, but Chezz, do you watch that? Wait, well, I'm getting way off topic. Anyways, he wanted to get intimate. He wanted to learn how it trades. So another just drastic difference that I'm just sitting back, observing, listening from where you were to where you are now. But so for future podcasts, if you hear Chezz and I, a lot of trading has to do with personality. This is a prime example right here with Chris on how that works. So well done. I mean, you're getting your adrenaline fill, but you're doing it in a smart way. Is that kind of a fair way to approach?
It's controlled for sure. And I don't know. It's less adrenaline these days, and more. Actually, I feel better doing it when I know what I'm doing. So the adrenaline rush of losing money, winning, losing, winning, losing. It was like a roller coaster ride. That was okay for me for a time. And again, I'm risking, like I said before, basically play money to me. So I'm the exact opposite of Sean, for example, who had to decide if she's going to feed her child or pay the bills. It's like, this is money that was just there that, basically my wife gave me the go ahead to try and invest. So I wasn't emotionally attached to it. But after realizing that if I want to be successful, I have to actually earn money and not lose money, then I changed that a little bit. And I also changed my strategies overall. I did a lot of firearms work, obviously. Back in the day, I was a competitive pistol shooter for a while. So I'm starting to use some of those principles that worked for me, in that, like, you may hear like sight alignment, trigger squeeze, if you're firearms. I know you guys are firearms guys. I went from just pointing and shooting like spray and pray sort of a tactic with the market to more sight alignment and trigger squeeze. Like, get things lined up where you're fairly certain you're going to hit your target before you pull the trigger. And just little mind changes like that. Aim small, miss small is probably another firearms term that you guys might be familiar with,
So how does that pertain to the market, though? I'm fascinated. This is, I did not know you were a competitive pistol shooter at one point. So aim small, miss small. How do you translate that over into the Chezz, we got so many good analogies here. This is,
yeah, I know we do.
aim up the trade, get everything in line before you pull the trigger. But as far as, just talk more about how these principles are translating from pistol shooting into trading.
So the concept in pistol shooting, for those of you that aren't familiar, aim small, miss small. If you have a target the size of a paper plate that you're trying to shoot at, you may be on target, but your shot spread will probably be large enough to cover most of the paper plate if you're aiming at the paper plate. But if you aim at a quarter-sized dot on the paper plate, your group will immediately shrink down because you're aiming smaller, you're going to miss smaller. So you may go from an 8-inch group to a 2-inch group, just changing what you're aiming at, because you're more precise. So when I think of aim small, miss small in my trading strategies, I'm thinking that maybe my stops might be a little bit tighter, and maybe a little bit tighter of a profit area, but my risk is reduced greatly from that. So I may not make as much money. Maybe I'll have a runner that will take off. But for the most part, if I'm aiming small and I take a loss, it's going to be a small loss. So I don't know if that directly one-for-ones in reality, but it does work. Because what I found is there was the part of me that didn't like to lose on a trade. I didn't like to be wrong. And basically, let's get real. When you lose money on a trade, it's because you were wrong. You thought the market, you thought the stock or the symbol was going to do something, and it did something different than what you wanted it to do. So what I would normally do is find this thing in me that says, you know what, move your stop loss down a little bit more. Just as long as you don't realize the loss, as long as it's still unrealized losses, it's okay. It can recover, and then it'll go back up, and then you'll break even, and then you'll go up from there. So I'd keep lowering and lowering and lowering the stop loss, and then eventually it would just stop me out still, and I'd lose so much more money. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, that's really dumb if you think about it, because even if it is going to go a lot lower than you have your stop loss, I'm talking a long position now, even if it's going to go a lot lower than you have your stop, why the heck would I ride that all the way down just to ride it all the way back up to break even? If I set a tighter stop and I'm wrong and it stops me out, then it goes down, maybe I can reassess a new entry based on where it is now. And instead of riding it down and then back up, I can just ride it back up. But I don't know why. I had this tendency to ride it all the way down and keep changing it. So that's kind of my aim small, miss small sort of a mentality.
Clay's tearing up over there.
I might say, instead of choking me out, Chris, can you give me a hug right now? That's just that's pure poetry to my ears. But you said, that's it. At the end of the day, losses happen, even if it's a good loss, because you were wrong. And you thought, like you said, the price was going to do one thing, and it didn't. So you can either just bite the bullet, pun intended, and get out, or you can just kind of do what you said, and that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, what you described as irrational is, why would I, just ride it all the way down and then hopefully ride it all the way back up just to break even when I can take the small loss and then reassess, and then instead of riding it all the way back up to get to break even, you're riding it back up to not only wipe away that small loss, but now put yourself in the green. So, that's fascinating. So, I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's nothing that says I didn't see this in the rule book anywhere that says if you lose on a trade, you can no longer trade that ticker anymore. There's nothing that says you can't reevaluate. Maybe change the time frame and figure out why it went against you, and maybe develop a new trade plan based off the new level, even after you just lost money on it. So, as long as you're not revenge trading, because there is a fine line there of like, I'm gonna beat this thing, and that's that's a whole nother challenge altogether.
Well, let's talk about that. That's interesting. So where's that fine line? Because I agree that is a fine line, and it's a line that you definitely don't want to cross. But I mean, in your own personal psychology, how do you recognize if you're approaching the line and maybe if you've crossed it?
I think the fine line is my level of frustration. I'm more likely to revenge trade if I'm frustrated by my loss and trying to recover immediately that money, as opposed to seeing the loss, accepting that I made a loss that was based on my trade plan, and that's okay to lose money because I lost it following my plan, and then reevaluate, but doing it, not out of frustration, but out of just, realigning. It's like when you miss the target, what do? You look at the sights extra hard the next time. I mean, that's all you do. So just reassess the situation.
Right. And it's because, even that small breather of, reassessment versus kind of revenge is just, you're taking it personal. The market didn't personally come out to, take your money. It was just your thesis for that moment in time was wrong. It doesn't mean your overall thesis is wrong. It just means that at that moment in time, you're either early to the party or you're just completely wrong. And, trying to force the market to give that money back is always just a recipe for disaster. So, just taking that few moments to kind of realign, like you said, is just so key.
So you talked about forcing the market. That's another challenge, and I'm sure you're going to ask me my weaknesses, and this is going to be one of them right now. But so one of the other things, kind of back to the question of what are you working on now? I told you about getting intimate with Tesla. The other thing I've been working on is trading futures. CL, I've been working on the oil future, sweet oil future, and I really find that of value to me because of the trading day is extended, and I have very limited access at work. This could be a whole nother podcast of all the drama I've had to go through trading off of mobile platforms or web trading in a place.
Because I got, you have to give us at least one of these stories, because I remember the multiple horror stories in Baltimore that you told about. Yeah, you like going out to the parking lot can you give us at least one of these horror stories, because they were truly classic. And I was just, I thought you were in the most flattering way. I thought this guy is nuts. He truly loves the market if he's doing all this stuff. So
no, I'm just an idiot is all.
Like, give us one of these horror stories. I mean,
yeah. So I work in a place where I can't have my cell phone. I can't have my own laptop computer or anything like that. I'm working on a government furnished computer, so I can't install software. I can't, very limited in actually what type of browsing I can do. I would often trade off my phone using, at the time I was using Thinkorswim platform, which is actually a really great mobile platform. I still use Thinkorswim, the mobile platform, for charting when I'm not at a computer where I can chart. But I would go out and I would try and literally day trade or even in some degree scalp off of my phone, in my car on lunch break or whatever. Or during breaks, I would check it and see, maybe I'd set a position, I'd set a stop loss, and I'd set, maybe a profit. And then I would go check it periodically and see if I was okay or not. That was, it's really hard to, what I should be is a trend trader or a swing trader or, perhaps an investor. It's really hard to day trade when you don't have access to your trading platform while you're day trading. That's kind of should be a
that's like an oxymoron.
Yeah. But one story in particular that happened to me that was really horrible. For some reason, and I didn't realize this at the time, I ended up on 20-minute delayed data on my Thinkorswim trading platform, and I'm like trading, and I'm seeing the charts, but the price that I'm trading at, things aren't lining up, and I ended up like not being able to figure out where I was, and I started chasing this price to try and figure out. I forget if I was long and I was trying to get out by going, by selling off, or if I was short and I was trying to buy it back out. But every time I entered in an order, it wouldn't fill. And I just kept chasing it, and it would not fill, and it would not fill, and it would not fill. And finally, I figured out that there was like $1 or $2 difference between what the chart was saying and what my order was at. Even doing market orders, it like wasn't working. And so I lost quite a bit of money on that, actually. And I'm standing in the hallway at work, trying to do this. My stress level's through the roof, and I shouldn't even be, trading at work. I should be working at work, right? I mean, that's a whole nother problem in and of itself. But I finally ended up calling TD Ameritrade, and apparently it was a glitch on their end, that whatever it is that I have to say I acknowledge to get real-time quotes, like that broke on their end, and it started giving me 20-minute delayed quotes. And 20-minute delayed quotes on a very active biotech on a day trade is a recipe for disaster. That's just one of the probably 20 stories I could tell about trying to trade, at work.
Yeah, I just remember in Baltimore, you're like, you can't have your phone. And I do, because when I worked for Honeywell way back when, I was with I understand how it goes when you can't take your cell phone into work. I mean, but I can only imagine having to go check your phone. Okay, go back, go check your phone. And then the other thing, Chezz, that stuck out, and an interesting talking point in and of itself, is the market is so cruel. When people can trade, it's usually at lunchtime.
Which is the worst time.
Yeah, but
which is the worst, yes.
Yeah, but Chezz, the whole thing about lunchtime volume is it's terrible trading action, because all the big money, the big money, they go to lunch too.
And the big paper has stepped out for martinis and caviar elsewhere. They don't want to be hanging out and just staring at the computers trading against the computers. But Chris over here, along with hundreds and probably thousands of other traders, this is their free time. They have access to their phone, access to the market, and now it's just them versus scalping algorithms who are just going to take them to the woodshed. So yeah, it is a very, very cruel setup for those trying to day trade and they only have lunchtime.
Yeah.
So I still do trading a little bit during the day on the web platform. I'm using Interactive Brokers now, not because I didn't like TD Ameritrade. I love their platform and everything. It's just their commissions are way too high. So now I'm at Interactive.
What are their commissions at? Because you say way too high. Why don't you quantify way too high, just so listeners? Because that's a
$7.99. So I started out with $9.99, and then I ended up getting a deal with them at $7.99.
A deal, quote unquote, deal at $7.99.
A trade. Yeah. So $14 round trip. So I had to make at least $14 on the trade to even break even. And so I was just constantly losing. And now with Interactive Brokers, I can trade, 200 shares for $1. And I'm much better now. I like smaller. I'll do scale in. And so scaling in and out with TD Ameritrade would cost me a small fortune, because if I'd scale in over the course of 3 trades, let's say I do 300 shares, and I'll scale in at groups of 100 3 times, and then I scale out 3 times. I mean, what is that? 6 times, $10 or whatever. It's like $50-$60 just in commissions. I mean, I couldn't make any money.
I'm not going to call it a scam, because it's not a scam, but you just got to pat TD Ameritrade, E-Trade's marketing department on the back, because they sure do make it like our day trading platform. Oh, you're a high quantity trader. We'll cut your commissions from $10 down to $8. It's like, if you're day trading the way you're supposed to in terms of scaling out, letting runners run, all that sort of stuff, that's still a small fortune. So I I don't call it a scam because, well, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to figure out and do the math. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so if you're listening and you want to become an active trader, trust me, it's not a deal if E-Trade lowers your commission from $10 down to $7 per trade. Because if you're doing day trading properly in terms of managing the trade, it's just don't look elsewhere. And Interactive Brokers, we don't get paid by them or anything. But yeah, they're definitely a good choice, to go with. So let's talk about some of your strategies right now in terms of, do you have any setups that you really like? Do you have any sort of, just what sorts of kind of approaches do you like to take where when you see a setup, when you're like, oh yeah, everything is lined up. Yeah, now I'm going to pull the trigger.
So I'm still learning that, right? What my preferred setups are, and becoming intimate, like I said before with Tesla. Now I'm sort of doing that with CL and the oil futures. So two things. One, and actually I need to go back a little bit because I was mentioning that why I moved to futures was because the extended trading day, which meant I could, before work, maybe get some trades in, maybe after work, get some trades in. The problem that I ran into there is I start trying to force the market to enter my time frame instead of me going to it. And I find I force things more. So I'm working on trying to make sure I don't. There is probably something to trade at any time, but if you pick a specific stock or future and a specific time that you plan on trading it, chances are good it's not going to align when it's actually a good trade.
Yeah, this is, again, the cruelties of the market. One of the worst things you can do, and thank you for bringing this up, is if you say, I only have, and then fill in the blank, 20 minutes to trade. I only have an hour to trade. If you say that to yourself, you are setting yourself up for what Chris just said. You're going to start forcing trades. At the end of the day, things are not going to align up like they're supposed to, but because you have this almost, kind of like fourth dimension of, well, I need to be done by this time because that's when either I have to go into work or that's when my lunch is over or this is when who knows what. It's just you can't enter in variables into the equation. There's already a ton of other variables in the trade equation from just a psychological standpoint. The last thing you need to do is introduce in you only got X amount of time. I mean, Chezz, is that, and I think everybody struggles with that, myself included. Sometimes I know that I have to, either make another video or do this or that. And then I feel those, okay, Clay, well, you only got 10 minutes left, so you better. And then, are you still? There's two ways I view this, and it's mainly because I live on the West Coast. So therefore, if most people start a job at 9, the market opens here at 6:30. Now, the way to not get trapped into forcing trades in that, that fourth dimension time frame is that you have to say that I am looking for, you should probably be saying, people should be saying this out loud when they're doing it, I am looking for opportunities in this first hour and a half. If none don't show up, that's okay. We'll try again tomorrow. But the difference is that is rush hour. It's, the market open. It is a busy time. It's when a lot of people generally try to make all their money and be done for the day. So I can understand if you have an hour and a half, 2 hours in the morning, but otherwise, like these arbitrary hours, lunchtime, I have 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. These are extremely random times. This is not known for being a high volume node of when most people are trying to do their trading. But the thing is, like I said, the statement has to be, I'm looking for opportunities, not I have to make a trade. So that's the only kind of stipulation I have on that. Well said. And it all actually circles back to Chris's point way back when he said the markets make moves every day. So to Chezz's point, if the opportunity doesn't present itself, there's always tomorrow. So, but yeah, we've had all kinds of good talking points. So yeah, exactly, Chris. That's terrible to be like, all right, I need to trade, and good recognition on your part, because yeah, that is a huge psychological pitfall. So
I told you my entire podcast is going to be everything you shouldn't do when you trade. But
so many things I still struggle with. Because they're just common things. It's human nature. We're brought up, right, to try to be on time, right? Because that's the courteous thing to do. So you look at a trade as, well, I need to be on time for my job, or I need to be on time for, fill in the blank. Therefore, I need to get this done. And it just, we talk about it all the time. Losses are already hard enough, but now when I stop and think about it, it's like even the way we're brought up is counterintuitive to trading, because we're brought up to be polite, to stay on schedule, and you don't want to schedule in trading. You need to let things be organic. So it's kind of crazy.
Right. So my setup, back to answering your question, because I know we're probably running low on time. I like to deal with price action and volume primarily. I do have moving averages. I've got, the 8, the 20, the 50, the 200. I do turn Bollinger Bands on and off from time to time. As far as lower indicators, right now, the only one I'm really experimenting with, and I call it experiment, I'm actually paper trading. So oddly enough, the 180 in me now, I went in full barrel and lost 10 grand just jumping into the market, cold. Now I'm actually a year later paper trading strategies before I implement them in real life. Which is a complete turn, but I'm experimenting with sort of a custom SMI, stochastic momentum index indicator. I kind of developed one in TradingView where I'm getting my charts from. There's a Pine editor and you can go in and edit. And I kind of have a combination of a slow and a fast SMI sort of combined and merged, and I've been using that with CL, getting familiar with it, and it's so far working well. But one day of trading, I can't say it's going to solve all my problems. But all of these indicators really are just whatever it is that you need to cue you that you're on the right track with a certain trade plan. So I remember somebody posted. I mentioned the fact that I was trading with this sort of custom double stochastic momentum index thing that I made, and somebody said, Holy Grail indicator. And it's like, I wish there was a Holy Grail indicator. But I think everybody sort of latches on personally to something that helps them make decisions. It doesn't tell me when to buy and when to sell. It just helps me make decisions. And that's just one data point along with price action and volume. And I like recognizing big patterns like the ascending and descending triangles and the ascending and descending wedges. I like those sort of breakout or movement deals. I haven't got good at the gap up and gap down yet. I really think that there's some opportunity there for me, but I'm not ready to start really hitting those yet. So you really stole my thunder there. So now I'm kind of, you're kind of a jerk in this situation. We can start. I was going to bring up the whole Holy Grail thing. As an outsider looking in, I was going to say, be careful, because, it sounds like there may be a little Holy Grail. However, the big difference between what you're doing and what a lot of other people doing is you're testing, you're paper trading. You're not just like, here's some indicator. Here we go. Let's put real money on the line and see what happens. No, this might be worth pursuing, and that's fine. Paper trade it. You understand that there is no Holy Grail. You summarize it perfectly. It's something that to hold on to, but you understand that price action, volume, that is other components. So I was gonna, bring up the Holy Grail thing, but you beat me to the punch, and I mean, you have everything well under control. So, but yeah, if you're out there, there is no Holy Grail. There's no indicator. There's nothing that's gonna, if there was, somebody by this point in time would have already found it. So, again,
and Chezz and I,
billions of dollars in the market, somebody else would have figured it out by now.
Yeah, somebody else, some big fund, some big company would have already figured it out. So trust me, when you see that Forex robot for $69.99 a month or some crap, I promise you that is not. They did not find the Holy Grail and sell it to you for $70 a month. So don't even bother with that. But Chris, what would you say are some kind of typical routines and strategies that you're implying yourself? I know that you're testing out some certain things, and you have various ways of trading. But what's a common routine for you? Whether it's either the day before, the morning of, what's that look like for you generally?
Depending on when I can do it, and I don't trade every single day at this point, but depending on when I can, usually it's first thing in the morning. I'll get up, 5 o'clock in the morning or so. Give me a few hours before I have to get ready. I usually start getting ready for work about 7. So I've got a couple hours. Sometimes it's just a matter of maybe going back and looking at the newsletter tickers, Clay, that you put out, and seeing if there's a trade there for me, something that makes sense. Sometimes it's going back through one of the ones I'm becoming intimate with, like Tesla or CL, and looking for a pattern that's clear to me. And that's really, and I say that very specifically a pattern that's clear, because it's easy for me to kind of see a pattern if I look at it carefully and squint one eye. I can tell it's going to be whatever, and then I force patterns to appear. So I'm trying to get better at looking for very distinctive patterns that I immediately recognize. My chart vision is getting better. It takes practice, though. It's like, I'm a guitar player too. I'm sure that surprises you, but I play electric guitar in my church worship band, and I've been playing for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. When I first started playing lead guitar, you have to practice. You have to do scales. You have to become familiar with the fretboard. Because what happens is if you don't, when it's time to do a solo or a funky lead part and you're sort of ad-libbing, you may hit sour notes because you're not really in tune with where your fingers need to be on the fretboard. Either you don't understand the scale or the key, or you're just not paying attention. But as you practice that year over year over year, it almost becomes second nature, where you can just kind of break into some random solo that sounds good over a particular piece of music, and you didn't even have to think about it because all those years of doing it, you finally ingrained it. And I think that's how chart vision happens. Is at first you're really struggling to find the patterns, and then second is understand what they mean. I can't count the number of times I'm like, okay, I see a ascending triangle. Now I got to go Google and find out what that means, or I got to go hit CTU and the members area and search for ascending triangle and find it in robotic trading or whatever. But now I get to a point where I can sort of immediately recognize patterns and know what to do with them, and that's helpful. The other thing I'm getting better at is knowing when to ditch a trade plan when it's no longer appealing. Like, I'm formulating a trade plan and it's an ascending triangle, and then as it starts to develop, it's actually starting to look more like an ascending wedge, which is a very different move prediction. And being able to pull out and ditch the idea before, instead of trying to go, no, it was originally an ascending triangle. It's probably always forever going to be exactly what I thought it was. Sometimes they change on you while you're formulating your plan, and if you're not paying attention. So I'm spending a lot of time sort of doing that, practicing that, both live and paper. And sometimes I'm wrong, but I'm wrong less often than I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I lose less money than I used to. So that's kind of where I'm growing.
Chezz, I don't know about you, but this guy sounds a little bit different than the adrenaline-seeking biotech stock, doing it all on my cell phone guy.
Play out type guy. Yeah. I think he's mellowed out as time has gone on and kind of recognized where he needs to slow down and the benefits it could have.
Yeah, you almost sound like you know what you're doing. I mean, this is pretty impressive. It sounds like you're actually putting together trade plans and using logic. So looking down at the top,
I know what I'm doing. I don't always do what I know. Yeah.
Well, I think any listener can sit here and be like, wow, okay, this guy from where he was, the adrenaline-seeking junkie. He sounds a little bit more, dare I say, boring in his approach rather than just let's see what happens. But if your approach is boring, odds are you're doing it right, because you got to approach things in a very methodical manner.
Another good way to say it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I came in shooting from the 50-yard line like right away, and I'm like, no wonder I can't hit the target. Now I'm pulling up to the 3-yard line and working my way backwards.
There you go.
Which is a lot more effective in the long run.
You're doing it right. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this. I think you are, because you've listened to a lot of podcasts. But Chezz has a time machine. So if Chezz were to lend you this time machine, and you could go back to, we'll let you pick the moment just because you kind of had a couple different locations. But if you could go back sometime in, when you were first getting started, what would be the one bit of advice that you'd give yourself?
If there was just one thing, I think I would say, and I've said this before, that the market will be there when I'm ready. The market, I was fortunate. I never had to deal with the penny stock thing. I didn't get into that, or the marijuana boom. I did a little bit come in right, April, May of last year, when the biotechs were sort of big and hopping, and they're still kind of there, but they were pretty powerful. But I felt like, I'm going to miss the entire stock market if I don't jump in right now today and start trading. And my advice to myself would be, look, that $10,000 that I lost over the course of a year, I could have saved if I learned how to trade before I started trading.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, it's just such an important thing to realize, and it does not, it's something that's glanced over so quickly as a new trader. So, could have saved you a lot of pain. It could have, kind of accelerated that, but honestly, it's all kind of part of the journey, and that's why we do these podcasts. But first off, thank you for this awesome interview. It's been great to finally have you on here. I remember kind of bugging you about it when we were actually in Baltimore, so thanks again for that. But now is actually the most important part. It's the only part that
this
Clay
is when the
actually cares
podcast
about.
begins.
Yeah. So this is where everything else was just kind of the pre-podcast, and now we're gonna have the actual podcast. So, what would you say is your favorite movie?
It would have to be Top Gun. Just like one of those that whenever it's on TV, I will just stop and watch it. It's a classic.
It's that's pure America right there. That's hashtag pure America is what Top Gun is all
Fighter
about.
Fighter jets, motorcycles.
Yeah, I mean beach volleyball. I mean, anyway, that's never mind. We won't go there.
So my wife and I have this thing. In the movie, there's a part where it's early on in the movie where I think Maverick's landing on one of the aircraft carriers, and it's like, the guy in the radio tower's like, Maverick, you're at 3/4 of a mile, call the ball. And Maverick's like, Roger, Maverick has the ball. My wife and I still to this day, we've been married for, 16 years. We still, like almost every time we're getting ready to exit the highway, it'll be like, you see the exit signs will be like, Lancaster Street, 3/4 mile. And we'll be like, Lancaster Street, 3/4 mile, call the ball. And she'll go, I've got the ball. It's like,
that's awesome.
The geekiest, dumbest thing ever. But we still
the movie, a movie is good when it gives like stories like that to a marriage or a relationship or whatever, when you guys can just, but it's, Chezz, you've seen it, right?
Yes, of course I've seen it. I am American, Clay. Thank you.
That is true. Sometimes I question it, but I mean, you're pure America here. Fantastic. What kind of food do you like? I know you like those burgers in Baltimore, but what's your go-to meal?
My go-to. So I was actually currently one of the fascinating things. Another story we don't have time for, but I was in Belgium during the Belgium attacks, just a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so we were actually at the train station when the airport attack happened, and then on a train when the second metro attack happened, a couple blocks away from where we were. And we ended up taking a train out to Dusseldorf, Germany, before they shut down all of the public transportation in Belgium. Again, long story, fascinating actually to think about. It was a great family vacation. But while we were there, Belgium and Amsterdam and Germany, I really fell in love with the pommes frites. They do fries with like a mayo sauce, and it's my new favorite thing. Is I just crave fries with mayo now, which I didn't really do very often before. Fries go with ketchup, but for some reason now I eat it with mayo.
I'm not going to lie. I had a lot of friends from Europe when just in the area kind of grew up, and they always did that. And once I had it I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I know about that. It
makes so much sense once you do it, but it's like, it's this mental challenge you have to overcome to have the first one. But for real food, German schnitzel, I make a mean, Jaeger schnitzel. And I make another dish that's a Hungarian dish called paprikash, chicken paprikash. It's kind of a chicken paprika dish that I make. My son loves it, so those are the two kind of go-tos for us.
Very good, very good. Now, what would you say are 3 words you believe should be associated with successful traders pretty much across the globe?
It has to be pretty much the 3 things I lack the most. Patience, discipline. Okay, I have the third one, commitment. I think it's a time commitment. It's a money commitment. You have to invest. I invested in CTU. It's an education commitment. So patience, discipline, and commitment, if I had to pick 3.
Very, very nice. Well, hey, I appreciate this. You didn't know this as we went through it, but this will be a 2-part two-parter, so you are in now in exclusive club. You're
I'm
probably
sorry,
wondering, man, why is this? No, it's trust me, we would gladly steer the conversation to wrapping things up if we weren't. But Chezz and I were talking on Skype here behind the scenes, like, man, he's got all kinds of good analogies, and these are so many good. Chezz is his hands full when he goes through this and picks out all the quotes because there's a bunch of good ones. So first off, welcome to the exclusive club of two-parters. You are now number 4. But in all seriousness, thank you very much for rearranging your schedule because I know you're a busy guy. So I genuinely mean that because I'm very quickly learning now with 3 kids. Yeah, schedules get crazier and crazier. And I know, you're a busy guy, so I appreciate that. And yeah, just thanks for hanging out with us for this quite a long time. And in 10 minutes, literally, you get to hang out with me some more at the webinar. So thank you very much.
How awesome is that? Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I was a little nervous about the concept of doing a podcast when we last talked because I didn't feel like I was in a position where I could give anybody any information that could be valuable. I'm still not a success story yet, but I think it's a good time to talk about my journey because I'm knee deep in the middle of the road trip right now. But I've learned so much already along the way. Now I just need to apply what I've learned moving forward. So, hopefully somebody gets some tidbit or nugget out of this.
I would highly, highly recommend that you listen to this podcast for yourself because you will see just how far you've come. Maybe you don't realize it, but just in what you've said from the beginning to what you're saying and the way you're talking towards the end, you've come. Would you agree with that, Chezz? Do you think he should definitely listen to this?
Of course. I always recommend people do it, and I've even listened to my own because you will just kind of recognize just listening to yourself how much you may have grown and how your views have changed as time has gone on. So definitely.
So, yeah, you may not be a success in the sense of you're making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but trust me, you're on the right path and you've made big leaps and bounds. So for those of you listening, I got to wrap this up because we literally have a webinar starting in 9 minutes. So. If you enjoyed this, which I'm sure you have, then please click the like button. If you're watching this on or listening to this on the website, you can leave comments below. Chezz and I read all those. If you're listening on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, then be sure to subscribe so you can keep up to date. iTunes especially, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating, little things like that, just really do go a long way. They let us know that, hey, you guys aren't wasting your time, and people are, where people are getting information. You're finding good nuggets of information in all this. So I hope you enjoyed. I'm confident you did. And we will see you back for the next episode.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the ClayTrader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit ClayTrader.com.